We are continuing our Moses lessons. So this is Moses part 3. Um, oh, Mike has a question for a icebreaker. He says, if you could kill any fashion trend forever, what would it be? Forever. I don't know. It's a hard question. Mike says he would kill Crocs. um, any fashion trend I could kill forever would probably be like really low hanging jeans or pants on guys, like when they have it like below their butt. Um, because I just hate like it makes you look so short. It makes your legs look tiny. I think it's silly. You just look like you have tiny legs. And then you're like running and there's like tiny legs. Uh Trevor said boots with fur. He also says I hate unbuttoned button-up shirts. Uh, that is true. I hate that as well. It is a side effect of growing up when I did that. Almost every boy wore unbuttoned button-up shirts, and I don't like it. All right. So we will continue with our lesson. So last week we talked about how God gave Moses a mission, and that mission was to go back and set all the Israelites free. He's currently living in Midian, and God appeared in a burning bush fashion, and he wanted him to go back to Egypt, where remember he recently murdered a dude, or not recently, but in living memory, and set the slaves in Egypt free. Moses was not excited about this task. And he gave God every excuse in the book to not do it. But in the end, he mostly begrudgingly relented. But as we're going to see today, he's still going to have a couple of, are you sure, God? Like every step of the way, God's going to be like, do this. And Moses is going to be like, are you sure? Are you sure I'm the one you want doing that? So it's because it's not a fun task God has asked him to do, and Moses thinks he's not well suited for it. So sometimes before we get too deep into the story, there can be a little bit of confusion over the pharaohs of the story because they're not named. So I want to reiterate quickly. The pharaoh who was Moses's like grandfather, the pharaoh who ordered all the death of the Israelite baby boys, is different from the pharaoh we're talking about today. The previous pharaoh we traditionally consider to be the pharaoh named Seti. If you watch Prince of Egypt or Ten Commandments, that's the name they'll use. But we don't know for sure if it was really Seti or not. But while Moses is out in Midian, that first pharaoh dies and a new pharaoh took over. Traditionally, this pharaoh is considered to be Ramesses, and that's how he's referred to in every Moses movie. But like the first pharaoh, neither pharaoh is named in the Bible. So Moses was picked up by the first pharaoh's daughter, making him the first pharaoh's adopted grandson. We don't know how Moses was related to the second pharaoh. It could be any number of things. Royal successions are weird. If you've watched any movie about like the royal family, you know, like Victoria, she was the king before hers. No, she was a king's granddaughter, but then because of the succession rules, like a lot of her uncles became king before she did, and then they all died, and then she was the only one left, so she became king. Queen, not king. So, you know, weird things can happen in succession. So the new pharaoh could be the last pharaoh's son. He could be the last pharaoh's grandson. He could be the last pharaoh's brother. He could be the last pharaoh's brother's son. We really don't know. Most Moses movies will portray Moses and this new pharaoh as very closely related because that makes for a really good story. Because then you get great family tension in there. Because like in Prince of Egypt, if Moses and Ramses were like raised as brothers, which is what they present in the Prince of Egypt. Then you have this brotherly dynamic in Ten Commandments. They're kind of like cousins, and they still have this competition, but we don't know how they were related. Ramesses could have been old enough to be Moses' father. He could have been old enough to be Moses' grandfather. He could have been younger than Moses. He could have been like distantly knowing who Moses is. All we really know is that the Pharaoh Moses fled when he left Egypt is not the person who is Pharaoh when he returns to Egypt. So Moses is heading back to Egypt and this new Pharaoh, but God is not sending him alone. So our first verses for this morning are Exodus 4:27 through 31. Exodus 4:27 through 31. The Lord said to Aaron, "Go into the wilderness to meet Moses." So he went, and he met him at the mountain of God and kissed him. Moses told Aaron all the words of the Lord with which he had sent him, and all the signs which he had charged him. Then Moses and Aaron went and assembled all the elders of the Israelites. Aaron spoke all the words that the Lord had spoken to Moses, and performed the signs in the sight of the people. The people believed, and when they heard that the Lord had given heed to the Israelites, and that he had seen their misery, they bowed down and worshipped. So God tells Aaron, Aaron is Moses' brother, Moses' older brother. I think all of Moses' siblings are older than him. So Aaron would have been out of the danger zone of the babies getting killed. Miriam, I think, is the oldest of them. So Aaron, who was not raised with Moses, has not seen Moses in a long time. God's like, hey, you remember your runaway brother Moses, who was kind of raised by Egyptians? He's out. I need you to go meet him. Because remember, Moses thinks he's not very good at talking. And so this is God kind of helping Moses to provide him someone who can help him with the words. And that person is Aaron. So Moses and Aaron meet up, and Moses explains everything. Then with Aaron's help, Moses gathers all the leaders of Israel. Because Moses would need Aaron's help. The leaders of Israel don't know Moses, and if they did know him, it would be as a prince of Egypt, not as like one of them. But Aaron would be one of them, someone they knew. So Aaron helps him gather all the people, and then Aaron is the one who explains everything to them. Because once again, Moses thinks that he's bad at talking. So then the people are like, oh my goodness, God has finally heard us. He's going to save us. Thank goodness. Thank God. Literally. For them at this point, they probably think this is going to be easy and fast because God is God and he can do whatever he wants. So I imagine a lot of these people expect that they're just going to go back, grab everyone else and their stuff, easy peasy, and walk out of Egypt. Great. But God doesn't always do everything the easy way. So now it's time. Oh, it looks like, did I freeze? Well, it seems to be back. So now it's time to tell Pharaoh about this whole freedom thing, because you can't just like take people out of Egypt. The Egyptians are going to have an opinion about that. So Exodus 5:1-5. Oh, it says video buffering low latency. That is on my end. I don't ever remember how to fix the buffering. Settings, maybe? Stream output. Video bitrate. Let's drop that down. All right, I dropped down the video bitrate a little bit, so that should help with the freezing. We'll see if that helps. All right, where were we? Exodus 5. Exodus 5, 1-5. So, afterward, Moses and Aaron went to Pharaoh and said, "Thus says the Lord, the God of Israel, let my people go, so that they may celebrate a festival to me in the wilderness." But Pharaoh said, "Who is the Lord that I should heed him and let Israel go? I do not know the Lord, and I will not let Israel go. Then they said, the God of the Hebrews has revealed himself to us. Let us go a 3 days' journey into the wilderness to sacrifice to the Lord our God, or he will fall upon us with pestilence or sword. But the king of Egypt said to him, Moses and Aaron, why are you taking the people away from their work? Get to your labors. Pharaoh continued, now they are more numerous than the people of the land, and yet you want them to stop working? Pharaoh's just like, you're ridiculous. All right, so Moses and Aaron go tell Pharaoh that God needs to let the Hebrews go. What's really interesting is at this point, Moses and Aaron aren't even asking for freedom. If you look back at it, they're asking to go for 3 days for a festival. Kind of testing the waters here, right? And Pharaoh's like, I'm not going to let you guys leave because then you'll probably never come back. And why should I let you have a festival to this God? I don't know this God. Who is he? Psh, I do not care. And not to mention all the work that just won't get done. We need the Israelites to do all this work. So, no. I'm not letting them go on this festival. The Hebrews are Pharaoh's slaves to do Pharaoh's work, and he's not going to let them go. On top of that, we're going to see he's going to punish them for even daring to ask. So, Exodus 5:6-13. That same day, Pharaoh commanded the taskmasters of the people, as well as their supervisors, you shall no longer give the people straw to make bricks, as before. Let them go and gather straw for themselves. But you shall require of them the same quantity of bricks as they had made previously. Do not diminish it, for they are lazy. That is why they cry, let us go and offer sacrifice to our God. Let heavier work be laid on them, then they will labor at it and pay no attention to deceptive words. So the taskmasters and the supervisors of the people went out and said to the people, thus says Pharaoh, I will not give you straw. Go and get straw yourselves, wherever you can find it, but your work will not be lessened in the least. So the people scattered through the land of Egypt to gather stubble for straw. The taskmasters were urgent, saying, complete your work, the same daily assignments as when you were given straw. So, one of the jobs the Hebrews were given was to make bricks. Presumably bricks for construction. If you've ever seen pictures of Egypt, you notice there's a lot of brick construction. The Egyptians would provide the ingredients, and then the Hebrews would put it together. But now the Egyptians are like, we're not providing the ingredients anymore. You asked for your freedom, and how dare you? So you're going to have to provide the straw. You're going to have to provide the clay. And guess what? If before you were making 5 bricks, you still have to make 5 bricks, even though now you have to use half of your day looking for straw. This is basically impossible. What I also think is really interesting here is what the Pharaoh says in verse 8. He says, for they are lazy. This is a common thing you'll see in rhetoric where we talk about, I say we collectively, like people. They'll talk about poor people and be like, they're lazy. That's why they're poor. Slaves, they're so lazy. The people at the bottom, they're so lazy. Whereas we at the top who have time to drink our tea and, have intelligent conversations, we're not the lazy ones. So it's interesting to see that this kind of rhetoric is not new. It goes back to like 2000 BC, where the people at the top see the people at the bottom who are working hard, working their lives away in hard manual labor. And they're like, oh, they're so lazy. They're not lazy. Making the bricks was hard work, and now they've made it doubly hard, and it's going to be impossible for them to meet the demand of the quotas they were given now that they have to find straw. And the Hebrews are pretty upset about this. They were told they were going to be freed. They were told Moses came to make their lives better. And instead, they're getting punished. Not what they had in mind. So Exodus 5:20-23. As they left Pharaoh, they came upon Moses and Aaron, who were waiting to meet them. They said to them, the Lord look upon you and judge. You have brought us into bad odor with Pharaoh and his officials, and have put a sword in their hand to kill us. Then Moses turned again to the Lord and said, O Lord, why have you mistreated this people? Why did you ever send me? Since I first came to Pharaoh to speak in your name, he has mistreated this people, and you have done nothing at all to deliver your people. So the Hebrews are pretty upset. They basically go to Moses and Aaron and they were like, you told us you were going to free us and now you've made our lives worse. How dare you? You're going to kill us, not free us. Go away. We didn't even ask for you. We don't even want you. The Hebrews' lives were already hard. They were already slaves. And then Moses came along and said God wanted them to deliver them out of slavery. And they probably thought that meant they'd be instantly free. But that's not the case. Instead, their lives get worse. It's no wonder they were angry. Moses gave them hope. And now it seemed to be like useless. Before they didn't even hope. Now they had hope, and then they just had their hopes immediately dashed. You know, sometimes they say it's got to get worse before it gets better, but clearly the Hebrew people had never heard that phrase before. So Moses, instead of calming their fears and smoothing out feathers, he could have been like, no, guys, it's going to be okay. God's got this. No, Moses doesn't know that God's got this. Moses is on this errand he doesn't even want to be on from God. So Moses goes back to God and he's like, what are you doing? What are you doing, God? So sometimes in life, people will say things like it's not our place to question God. And to a certain extent, I would say, I guess that's true. We are not God. We can't understand why he does the things he does. But right here, Moses is questioning God. He's not just questioning God. He's taking God to task. He's like, hey, God, remember that thing you said you were going to do? Maybe you should actually do it. Would be nice, God, if you did your job. That is basically what Moses is saying here. It takes a lot of, I'm going to go with the word gumption, to say something like that to God. And it would be within God's rights to be like, please, child, I don't answer to you. And basically smite Moses where he stands. But as we've already seen with the story of Jacob and so many others, God is not opposed to us wrestling with him. It is okay to take your concerns to God and sometimes be angry about it. God understands your emotions. He wants you to tell him what you're feeling. And sometimes he does respond with, I'm God. I don't need to explain myself to you. I've got it. Chill. And sometimes we just need to express our emotions to God. And he doesn't say anything. He's just like the guy who's like patting your back, you know, like they're there. Like, it's okay. I validate your emotions. Things are hard right now. And then sometimes God does explain himself, which is basically what he does here. So Exodus 6, 1-8. Then the Lord said to Moses, now you shall see what I will do to Pharaoh. Indeed, by a mighty hand he will let them go. By a mighty hand he will drive them out of his land. God also spoke to Moses and said to him, I am the Lord. I appeared to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob as God Almighty. But my name, the Lord, I did not make myself known to them. I also established my covenant with them to give them the land of Canaan, the land in which they resided as aliens. I have also heard the groaning of the Israelites who the Egyptians are holding as slaves, and I have remembered my covenant. Say therefore to the Israelites, I am the Lord, and I will free you from the burdens of the Egyptians and deliver you from slavery to them. I will redeem you with an outstretched arm and with mighty acts of judgment. I will take you as my people, and I will be your God. You shall know that I am the Lord your God, who has freed you from the burdens of the Egyptians. I will bring you into the land that I swore to give to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I will give it to you for a possession. I am the Lord. All right, let me drink my water real quick. God explains himself to Moses. He basically tells him that he's going to make Pharaoh want to send the Hebrews out of the land. The very Pharaoh who just basically laughed in Moses' face and said he would never give the Hebrews up even for a holiday. God is going to change his mind that much. Then he reiterates the covenant he made with Abraham to Moses. God has not forgotten his promises. He says he will take them out of Egypt and back to the promised land. And through all of this, the Hebrews will know him as their God. So, Exodus 6:9. Moses told this to the Israelites, but they would not listen to Moses because of their broken spirit and their cruel slavery. Moses goes back and tells the Hebrews what God told him, but the Hebrews' spirit has been broken. Moses gave them hope, and it was dashed. Pharaoh wouldn't even let them go for a holiday. How is he going to let them go forever? They don't believe. And I think this is very important because we're about to study and talk about the plagues being rained down on Egypt. And there will be a question of why God did this. And I think there's two reasons. And we're going to talk about the second reason next week. But the first reason why I think it took so many plagues and miracles to convince Pharaoh to let the Hebrews go, the reason why I think it took so many is because of this. I think it's less about punishing the Egyptians and more about making the Hebrews believe again. These are a broken people. They have lost their faith. They do not think God can deliver them. They don't think God is powerful enough. And now God is going to show them just what his might and power can do. And he is going to remind them that this covenant thing is a two-way street. He is theirs and they are his. The Hebrews belong to God. All right. Exodus 6:10 through 13. Exodus 6:10 through 13. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, "Go and tell Pharaoh, king of Egypt, to let the Israelites go out of his land." But Moses spoke to the Lord, "The Israelites have not listened to me. How then shall Pharaoh listen to me, poor speaker that I am?" Thus the Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron, and gave them orders regarding the Israelites and Pharaoh, king of Egypt, charging them to free the Israelites from the land of Egypt. Sorry, someone opened the door, and some dogs came in here. I see you. So God speaks to Moses again and tells him to go back to Pharaoh. But Moses is like, I couldn't even get the people I'm supposed to free, the people I'm supposed to lead, to listen to me. Why would Pharaoh listen to me? Moses is trying to get out of his job again. But this time, it's not just because he hasn't even tried. He's tried, and he's failed. He talked to Pharaoh once. He's talked to the Israelites. Neither way is going well. Pharaoh is not listening to him. The Israelites are not listening to him. It's just a disaster. And Moses is kind of like, I told you so, God. I can't speak well, and that's the downfall of this whole plan. I am not the person. You should have chosen to do this. But God doesn't even dine Moses' doubts with a response at this time. Instead, he's just like, dude, here's my plan. So, Exodus 7, 1 through 7. The Lord said to Moses, "See, I have made you like God to Pharaoh, and your brother Aaron shall be your prophet. You shall speak all that I command you, and your brother Aaron shall tell Pharaoh to let the Israelites go out of his land. But I will harden Pharaoh's heart, and I will multiply my signs and wonders in the land of Egypt. When Pharaoh does not listen to you, I will lay my hand upon Egypt and bring my people, the Israelites, company by company, out of the land of Egypt by great acts of judgment. The Egyptians shall know that I am the Lord, when I stretch out my hand against Egypt and bring the Israelites out from among them." Moses and Aaron did so. They did just as the Lord commanded them. Moses was 80 years old and Aaron 83 when they spoke to Pharaoh. They be old. All right, so God tells Moses he has made him like God to Pharaoh. What does that mean? Well, remember, Pharaoh considers himself a god. Pharaoh is considered the representative of the Egyptian gods on earth. God is basically elevating Moses to that same status. Moses is God's representative on the earth. Moses will be speaking God's words to Pharaoh. Later in the Bible, the word prophet will be used for this, for someone who speaks God's words. Someone who talks to God and speaks God's words to his people. Here it says Aaron is Moses' prophet. This basically relates back to this whole Moses is a bad speaker thing. Moses will tell Aaron what God tells him, and Aaron will put it in pretty and clear words for Pharaoh to listen to. God tells them to go back to Pharaoh and ask them to let the Hebrews go. But God will harden Pharaoh's heart. What does that mean? People argue about this. This is one of those things. And they're generally kind of two sides. So for some people, it means that God actually kept Pharaoh from realizing he should let the Hebrews go. That God purposely affected Pharaoh so he would be stubborn. And God's reasons for this are that he wanted to show all his wonders and convince not just the Egyptians, but also the Hebrews that God is God. Then once Pharaoh was done with all his wonders, he changes Pharaoh's mind so that Pharaoh releases the Hebrews. So that's one. This is what I'm going to call, for shorthand, the predestination kind of school of thought, that God made this completely happen, right? That God went in, and if there was a switch in Pharaoh, God switched it off, right? So the other interpretation is that God already knows Pharaoh's character. God made Pharaoh. God's seen Pharaoh grow up. And God knows what Pharaoh is going to do because God sees everything. So he doesn't actively harden Pharaoh's heart. He just knows that that's what Pharaoh is going to do. He knows Pharaoh will not let the Hebrews go. And God knows exactly how many signs and wonders it'll take to get Pharaoh to change his mind. That is kind of our free will version. So this is a mini predestination versus free will debate. Both interpretations are equally valid. Regardless, in both situations, God is sovereign. Pharaoh's stubbornness is used to further God's plan, whether it was God who made Pharaoh stubborn or Pharaoh who chose to be. Because Pharaoh was stubborn, God was able to basically show off his impressive miracles, signs, and wonders and remind the Hebrews that he is their God and he is capable of more than they can possibly imagine. So, predestination, free will. You guys know I'm pretty free willy. But, Presbyterian Church can be pretty predestination-y. So that's just kind of one of those things. It's one of those debates that you see throughout the Bible. Do you do everything you do because God pre-programmed you to do it? Or do you do the things you do and you make your own choices or not? We see something similar to this again in the New Testament. We see this everywhere. You see it everywhere in the Bible. But there's one specific example in the New Testament I wanted to flip to because it kind of calls back to this Pharaoh thing and the hardening of hearts. So that's in the book of John, if you want to flip there. John is the fourth book of the New Testament. So in the Gospels, which are Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, Jesus performs many miracles. He turns water into wine. He heals cripples and blind people. He raises people from the dead. But still, people don't believe in him. The verses we're about to read are talking about that. So in the first verse, when it refers to he, it is referring to Jesus. But when it says they, it's referring to the people who didn't believe. So John 12:37 through 43. John 12:37 through 43. Mike says he likes Free Willy. Yeah, I'm Free Willy. The dogs have left. So, although he had provide. Oh my gosh, I can't read. Try again. Take two. John 12:37 through 43. Although he had performed so many signs in their presence, they did not believe in him. This was to fulfill the word spoken by the prophet Isaiah. Lord, who has believed our message, and to whom has the arm of the Lord been revealed? And so they could not believe, because Isaiah also said, He has blinded their eyes and hardened their heart, so that they might not look with their eyes and understand with their heart and turn, and I would heal them. Isaiah said this because he saw his glory and spoke about him. Nevertheless, many, even of the authorities, believed in him. But because of the Pharisee, they did not confess it, for fear that they would be put out of the synagogue. For they loved human glory more than the glory that comes from God. So like I said, this section is talking about how Jesus did all these miracles, but people still didn't believe in him. Not just they didn't believe in that he was Son of God and the Messiah. They didn't just not believe that he was divine. They thought he was a fraud. They saw these miracles with their own eyes, and they tried to discredit it and tried to be like, oh, he's just a magician doing magic tricks, whatever. So the writer of John, who is John, references the book of Isaiah to explain this, saying God hardened the hearts of these people. But then he also talks about the people who want to believe, but basically they love their power more than they love God. And they know if they follow Jesus, they will lose favor with the religious authorities who hate Jesus. This is a common thing, guys. People who love power more than they love God. We never outgrow it. So the second people, though, God didn't actively harden their hearts. They chose not to follow Jesus. They chose their power over Jesus. The religious authorities, though, that John's referring to, did God actively harden their hearts? Maybe. This is the same debate. God certainly has the power to do so. And there are many Christians who believe this is how God operates. He actively chooses who believes and who doesn't. However, this can also be viewed in a free will manner. The Pharisees and religious leaders chose not to believe Jesus because it is a threat to everything they believe to be true. They didn't need someone else to harden their heart. They're just stubborn. And if Jesus is real, they'll lose all their power and they'll lose all of the stuff they've invested their entire life in. I mean, when we talked about the Pharisees, it's not just power, right? I mean, a lot of it is, but some of it's just like, I spent my entire life believing things are one way, and now you're coming and telling me it's something else? Jesus was a surprise ending. It wasn't what they expected to happen. And I sometimes are really hard on them, but it would be really hard to believe it. So they did have a lot of power and wealth often, but they also had a lot of investment in what they believed. So they had a lot to lose by saying this Jesus guy was Messiah. So this debate of predestination versus free will is not one we're going to solve today. It's not one we're ever going to solve. That's one of those things we're never really going to know the answer to until we're standing before God one day. That's just reality. And in a strange way we don't understand, it's probably that they're both simultaneously true in some way. It's probably really complicated. It has to do with multiple dimensions and God being outside of time and that kind of stuff, right? Like physics 12 level stuff. So whichever you choose to believe, I'm not going to tell you you're wrong. I don't believe in predestination because to believe in predestination would hurt my faith. Whereas there are other people who find predestination very comforting. So, you know, you do you on this debate. There's people all across the spectrum within Christianity. I am very free will. But as I already said, the Presbyterian Church as a whole, as a denomination, accepts a more predestination view of things. So regardless of where you fall in the debate, we do know something. Jesus came to save those who believe in him. That's John 3:16. I make the 6th graders memorize this every summer. For God so loved the world that he gave his only son, so that everyone who believes in him may not perish, but may have eternal life. We can argue about who creates the kernel of belief in the believer. And trust me, people argue about this. But do not doubt that God loves you, and this verse applies to you. Because it does. I memorized this verse in the King James. So I memorized it as whosoever believeth in him. And there's an old hymn we used to sing when I grew up, where the main chorus was, whosoever surely meaneth me. If you believe, it means you. When it says whosoever in this verse, it means me. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son, so that when Mandy believed in him, she wouldn't perish, but would have eternal life. For when Mike believes in him, for when Trevor, for when Jaron, for when Hannah, that is what this means. It means you. Whoever can mean everyone, if you just believe. And that's where we're going to stop. Next week, we're going to go over the plagues of Egypt. I probably won't be doing it with you next week, so it'll probably be on Zoom, though I don't know that for sure because I haven't communicated that yet with Halisha. So just keep a tab on your email for notification. And if you're one of the people who watches on YouTube, it probably means there won't be a YouTube video of next week's lesson. So that is the end of today's lesson.